Again, let me say thank you for your time and your patience for being here. This is the final time that I will ask you to do that. Some of you have done this before, and some of you are here for the first time, but I want you to know that I appreciate your time and your patience for being here. I shall never forget that night. It was one of the longest nights of our lives. My wife and I sat on the floor, and we had tremendous prayer. We prayed for family. We prayed for ourselves. We prayed for our church. We prayed for our community. And the whole time that all this was going on, the Southeast was literally caught up in a series of tornadoes. To make matters even worse, it was nighttime. We had gotten the reports, we had gotten the warnings, and yet we had gotten to our particular place, like hopefully you have in your home, and that is our place of safety. And as we sat there in that floor, in our place of safety, we had no clue what tomorrow would bring. Out of curiosity, I went to the door, and I opened the door just to see what was going on because I heard all the noise, the pelting and all the sound like somebody was throwing rocks against my windows and against my door. And I opened the door, and I've never experienced this in my life. I opened the door, and I saw not only hail falling from the sky, but I saw hail in swirls. It was just swirling around. And as a matter of fact, it was swirling around so much that when I opened the door, it was like somebody was throwing rocks inside my house. And I closed the door. The reason why I say that is because there is a subject matter that I want to highly try to persuade you to consider, because oftentimes in the places where we live, everyone is not necessarily prepared for tornadoes. But watch this, everyone should be. Sometimes if we're not careful, we will declare the mountains, we will declare the plateau, we will declare the valley as our place of refuge. Not recognizing, though, that tornadoes can visit any place, anytime, and anywhere. And on this particular night, it visited our neighborhood. Some of you live in the same neighborhood that I live in. The American Meteorological Society defines tornadoes as a byproduct of thunderstorms. It is reported that 800 to 1,400 tornadoes are reported each year in the United States. These tornadoes are basically in two categories, weak and strong. Weak tornadoes have a lifetime of less than 10 minutes and wind speeds up to about 110 miles per hour. They are considered especially dangerous, and you might think, why so? Because they're weak. They're considered especially dangerous because they are hard to predict. It's hard to predict where they will be, the longevity of their operation, but they are equally dangerous. The other category is what they call strong, violent tornadoes. These can last from 10 minutes up to 2 hours, covering more than 100 miles in length and can have speed ranges up to 300 miles per hour. According to the United States Federal News Service, although they can occur at any time, springtime is the noted time in our area for tornado season, which is early spring. It is during that time that warm Gulf air moves up through the south and causes severe turbulence at that particular time of year, which can be spawning activity for tornadoes in the southeast region. History occurred when a rare tornado, which was a double twister, became the 5th deadliest in our history, and it accounted for 200 deaths, and it took place in Gainesville, Georgia in 1936. That reminds us that the infamous Tornado Alley of the Midwest is not the only place where tornadoes can take place. As I said earlier, they can happen anywhere, anytime, and any place. The American Journal of Public Health reports that on April the 25th through April the 28th, 2011, 351 tornadoes swept through the southeast, recording 338 fatalities. That is huge. Everyone should be prepared for tornadoes. But how do we prepare? What is considered a right state of preparedness? What should we do? And how should we position ourselves in the event that we are caught off guard? Because tornadoes typically don't happen in this area, but we know that they can and they will happen again. One of the things that we can do in terms of preparedness is know our early warning messaging system. It is important to understand that the National Weather Service, along with other entities, have in place what they call early warning systems that are designed to notify people as far in advance as possible to make preparations for impending situations. That means that there are times when we need to take cover. There are times when we need to start identifying the area of shelter that we're going to go to. That means that we need to agree with the weather reporters that we have a situation that causes a cessation of all activity as we know it, and we need to adhere to those warning messages. What are they? They're public warning systems. They can be sirens. There can be interruptions of your television and radio programs. There are television, there are radio, smart apps on your devices if you have those, personal notifications even from people that you know. That dreadful night that I talked about that Dolores and I spent together in terms of experiencing this storm, all night our son was in another city and we text one another back and forth because it was apparent from the progress and apparent from the forewarning and the forecasting that the storms was leaving his direction, his location rather, and coming to our direction. And so he would text me and he would say, "Dad, another one's on the way." And it wouldn't be long, we started experiencing that activity. We did that over and over all night long. That's a means of warning. That's a way of letting your neighbor know. That's a way of letting a loved one know the impending danger. Lead times when it comes to tornadoes can range from 10 minutes up to 2 hours, depending on the gravity of the situation. The 2011 storm that I referred to in the southeast had a lead time of 2.4 hours for tornado watches and 22 minutes for tornado warnings. Now, that means we have to understand the difference. A tornado watch means that the conditions in your particular area are conducive for the possibility of a tornado. That means you need to be vigilant and be careful because the area has the possibility of it. But unlike the tornado watch, the tornado warning means that an actual tornado has been sighted, the activity is underway, and the only response to that is to take cover and to take cover immediately. So it's important that we know our early warning systems if we're going to be properly prepared for an event such as the one we talked about in terms of tornadoes. Now, secondly, you need to know your surroundings. Why? Because listen, folks, a tornado does not wait till you get home and then notify you that it's on the way. That's not how it works. When a tornado happens, it's always an impromptu moment. It always catches us off guard. We're living our normal, regular lifestyle. So watch this. You may be at home. You may be at work. You may be at school. You may be on travel. You could be doing any number of things and be caught in a situation called a tornado, and you need to be aware of your surroundings. There are some surroundings that are good, that you can engage in terms of shelter, and then there are some things that you need to stay away from. For instance, shelter is best in basements, interior hallways with as many walls as possible, separating you from the outside. Bathrooms or closets or rooms with little or preferably no windows are the best place to go. So when you find yourself in those areas, take that in consideration. Also, if you're in an open area, utilize the heavy covering of a desk or a table. Avoid open areas like gymnasiums and malls and open fields because these are areas where flying debris can take its toll on you. Now, contrary to popular belief, there are some myths that needs to be avoided. For instance, if you're caught in your car and there's an actual tornado touchdown, some people say, "I'll just outrun the tornado." That's the worst thing you can do. Experts remind us that if you're caught in that situation, you are better off to get out of your car, find you a low spot, a ditch, a culprit, a culvert, wherever it might be, than to try to outrun that tornado because it could literally pick your car up and carry you with it, and the results to that could be devastating. So remember, don't try to outrun it with your car. How about this one? Some people say, if I could get to the nearest bridge and park my car, that'd be a safe place. That's one place you don't want to be. You do not want to park up under a bridge. You don't want to park up under an overpass. That's not a place that you want to be. You don't want to be outside, period, if all possible. Another myth you want to deal with is this. People say, well, if I'm at home, the first thing I need to do is I need to open up my windows because if I open up my windows, what that'll do, that'll relieve the pressure inside my house. That's the worst thing you could do. Leave your windows shut. These are myths sometimes that people think that are helpful and they're counterproductive to their own safety. Tornadoes are devastating, and we need to understand the things that we should do and the things that we should not do. Like I said, if you're outside, find a culvert, find a ditch, or seek shelter elsewhere. But the last thing you want to do is remain in your car and put yourself in harm's way. So early warning message systems need to be known. You need to know your surroundings because you're not always at home. And then thirdly, you need to know your home protection plan. That is, if you have a home protection plan, familiarize yourself with it because it's easy to become distant from it. We have tornadoes come in our area, but they're rare, and you can become distant from that plan. Stay familiar with that plan by knowing what members of your household are expected to do in times of danger. If you do not have a plan, the Federal Emergency Management Agency can help you develop one. Much of this information is free, and they will be willing to offer that to you to help you develop a plan for your own house. That plan should include a safe place in your home, should have battery-operated radios, first aid, food, kit, water, medicines that you normally take, extra boots or shoes or clothing that you might need. And this is important because you don't know what the devastation you might be facing. Your safe place should be in a basement. If you have one, that's the first place you should go. If you live in a two-story home, the next safest place is the one that's closest to the ground, the lower level and inner room, a bathroom or a closet that distance you from outside interference, preferably with no windows. So know your plan. If you don't have a plan, develop one. Fourthly and finally, you should know your risk factors. Some of the risk factors associated with tornadoes can be in the afterglow of the event. For instance, once the tornado has moved on, if you're not careful, one of the first things you want to do is you want to go outside, assess damage, and see what's going on. Be very careful because you can expose yourself, for instance, to downed power lines, which can be very devastating and very deadly to you. So be aware of the risk factors associated with both during a storm and after that storm. Be mindful of the fact that you have a responsibility, if possible, to help others, but only help them after the tornado has passed because you can put yourself in harm's way. It's kind of like the rules that go with a drowning victim. You have to be careful that you prepare yourself first before you try to prepare someone else. Have you ever been on a plane and when they tell you about the oxygen mask, what do they tell you? Put yours on first before you try and help someone else. That same principle is here also. Contrary to popular belief, mobile homes are unsafe places. And many people live in mobile homes, but they're unsafe. Window areas are unsafe. Door areas are unsafe. Rooms that have corners are basically unsafe because they tend to attract debris. Heavily populated areas versus rural areas are unsafe, so you have to be careful. So the whole idea is understand your risk factors. One of the things that I love about this church is our staff and our leaders are trained what to do in the event of an emergency, know where to take people, how to protect people. That's very, very important. We pray to God, and we hope that that will never happen in this area, but we don't have the promise or the assurance that that will not happen. So in conclusion, when it comes to preparedness, when it comes to understanding the danger of tornadic activity, know your early warning messaging system. Know your surroundings. Know your home protection plan, and if you don't have one, put one in motion, and then know your risk factors. The next morning, Dolores and I got up, and we began to go outside to assess the damage. And one of the things that I noticed was debris was everywhere. My homes, like many other homes in my neighborhood, were pelted with hail and damage to doors and damage to windows and damage to screens and damage to the roof, all that was going on. I noticed when I went around by my deck, it was as though the ice company had come and left the ice on the back porch. We took pictures of that. Never seen anything like that before. Tornadoes can be absolutely devastating. They can create havoc. They can create fatalities in our lives, and we need to be very vigilant and very watchful and very mindful of the fact that just because we live in an area where it doesn't happen that often does not mean that it cannot happen to us. Listen, I implore you, I encourage you, I try my best to persuade you to consider the fact that when it comes to tornadoes, even though we don't have them that much, make sure you're prepared. Make sure you've identified an area in your house, and make sure you understand the need to protect yourself in advance of tornadic activity. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention, and I hope you have a plan. Thank you.